Let's go to the Broncos at the 49ers, where the Niners upset Denver in Levi's Stadium 20-14 behind a career day from tight end George Kittle. Kittle catches 7 for 210 yards and a touchdown and finishes just 4 yards short of Shannon Sharp's all-time record for receiving yards by a tight end, which was 214. Adam, are you impressed with what George Kittle is doing there in San Francisco?
I am partly impressed and partly baffled because you know how 210 yards, that was all in the first half.
Yeah, that was insane.
So he couldn't pick up 4 yards in the second half. I mean, obviously that's not all on him. I mean, he has to be open, but you would think they would try something, to get him, a 5-yard pass somewhere. It doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult.
Yeah.
But, I guess I'm kind of baffled that that's all he ended up with, given the start he had. But really good for him. Really, really good game. Turning into a pretty good player out there with our guy Nick Mullins still doing his thing there.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's nice to see Kittle doing that. This was a surprising stat. Did you know that George Kittle is the first 49ers tight end ever to record 1,000 receiving yards in a season? I'm shocked that Vernon Davis was not on that list. I looked up the stats, and Vernon Davis' top season was 965, just outside of 1,000. So George Kittle putting up some numbers. Tito, are you a George Kittle fan?
No, I'm not going to lie. I didn't hear about George Kittle until this year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not sure how long he's been playing, but yeah, I'm very surprised.
I think he was a rookie last year.
Oh, was he? Okay,
Yeah.
so that would make sense. Yeah, I'm surprised that he's put up some great numbers versus a lot of teams. He's gone over 100 yards, I think now 3 times, and he's been close a few times to going over 100 yards. I'm surprised that George Kittle. Like I said, I wasn't really sure who he was until this year when he's had a few breakout games. But yeah, that's crazy that he's gone over 1,000 yards this season.
Yeah, and to be doing some of that with Nick Mullins. It wouldn't surprise me if Jimmy Garoppolo was at quarterback, but Nick Mullins?
Right. Yeah, and that's another person that you're not sure who he is.
Yeah.
Until this year.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be this year's Matt Flynn. He's going to be that guy who comes in for Aaron Rodgers, plays some good games, and he's going to get a huge contract, and probably never hear of him again.
That'd be awesome. Matt Flynn is probably still cashing those checks.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
The Broncos' 3-game winning streak is snapped. I'm pretty surprised Denver found a way to lose this game. Didn't see it coming. Denver linebacker Von Miller ties the franchise record for sacks with Simon Fletcher at 103.5 sacks. And Broncos rookie linebacker Bradley Chubb sets Denver rookie franchise record for most sacks by a rookie, passing Von Miller. He's got 12 sacks on the year. And Denver will look to bounce back in Week 15 against the Browns, which should be a good game. Let's go to the Detroit Lions at the Arizona Cardinals, where the Lions take care of business in State Farm Stadium and beat up the Cardinals 17-3. Stafford only threw for 101 yards in the game, but Darius Slay with a nice 67-yard pick six off of Josh Rosen. Slay on the interception, quote, "I kind of baited him. I knew it was coming. I knew it before the play even happened," end quote. Darius Slay led the league in interceptions last year, so not really surprising to see that. And Detroit ends a 8-game losing streak in Arizona, dating all the way back to 1993. Adam, you got to be happy to beat the Cardinals and get done with that losing streak there.
Yeah, I actually wasn't aware of that streak. One of our many losing streaks. I was happy to see them win, but at this point in the season, I don't know if winning really does us any good.
Yeah.
I think we're one of only a couple teams with very little upside, positive upside, looking into next season. So gonna have to hope we get something in the draft or get some good free agents, because with Tate being gone and a couple of other receivers being banged up, there's not a lot of things to look forward to with the Lions. So it's always nice to see them win, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't really matter at this point in the season.
That being said, we get to this point and you're kind of looking to the future, you're kind of looking to the off season. If you were the GM, if you could sit down with the owner or something like that and talk about what direction you would like to see this Lions team head, what kind of moves you would like to see them make this off season, what's something that you would like to see fixed or addressed?
We definitely need more weapons on offense.
Yeah.
Our defense is actually playing pretty well right now, but the offense is so stagnant right now. I think we had, it was 100 and some, I think, total yards of offense, I think, which is just embarrassing. We see 218 total yards of offense, 122 passing yards with Matt Stafford, a quarterback who has a 5,000-yard passing season.
Yeah.
So, we need to get Stafford more weapons. Someone more of we have a lot of injuries right now. I think that's what it comes down to. Kerryon Johnson's injured. Jones is
Anza's
injured.
been hurt all year.
Yeah, they actually just put Anza on the IR this week, actually.
Yeah.
So I would say the defense is actually looking pretty good, which is not all that shocking since Matt Patricia was a defensive coordinator. But we definitely need to get something in there with the offense going. If I really like Jim Bob Cooter, but if he doesn't, get something, going, he's going to have to be replaced.
See, looking at it from the outside, looking in, I would think the best way, you got Matthew Stafford. How many years are you going to have him? You don't know. You want to win with your franchise quarterback, a guy you believe in. At no point, at one point he had Calvin Johnson and Nate Burleson or Ebron. At one point he had Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate, I think, for a second. Stafford has never had the best weapons. At some point, why don't you just go out there and get him a number one wide receiver, a big name, someone with some splash that can get people's expectations up and go for it. Try to have a winning year. I mean, you got Matthew Stafford. Give him some weapons. He's, like you said, he's thrown for 5K yards before. Would you like to see them go after a big name in free agency?
I would, but again, number one receivers aren't just out there for the plucking either. So
yeah.
It's you have to have someone that is wanting to come there in free agency, or you're gonna have to trade for him and give up draft picks.
Well,
so
you mentioned before, you talked about possibly Kareem Hunt or a guy like Le'Veon Bell. Do you think would you be open to something like that?
Oh, I would love to bring in either of those guys.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell probably more so just because I think he's the more proven commodity. Don't get me wrong, Kareem Hunt's been playing really well, but this was only his second year, and he was in a really, really good system there that just kind of highlighted all of his strengths. So I think Le'Veon Bell is. I would think I'd prefer to have him, but I would be happy with either of those guys.
Yeah. Tito, what's your take on Le'Veon Bell? Are you surprised he didn't play at all this year? And where do you think would be a good fit for him next year? You want him in Oakland?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Don't want it in Oakland. Yeah, I mean, I would love to have someone like Le'Veon Bell line up behind Derek Carr.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm surprised he didn't want to play this year. I understand the whole money issue, but you're on the team with the Steelers where it's always a possibility you're going to make a big playoff run, go to the Super Bowl. And, and with him and James Conner was great this year. And so if they would have had those two running backs,
oh, man.
I think that would have been great for Big Ben.
Yeah.
And I think now with James Conner out, they've been having to sling it more, and that's where they become more accident prone. So I was surprised that he decided not to play because they have a great team. Yeah, so I definitely was surprised that he decided not to play. Would I like for him to see him in Oakland? I would. I'm not sure exactly what's going on over there. If they want to, make a playoff run next year or not, I'm not sure what they'll be doing. But if that's a plan, if that's something that's in their plans, I would definitely be up for it.
Yeah, and To wrap up this game, Cardinals wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald extends his streak of games with at least one catch to 224 consecutive games. And like you said, Adam, the Lions play Ziggy Ansah on IR. The same injury he's been dealing with all season, shutting him down now to repair it. And the Lions will look to start a winning streak in Week 15 at the Bills. Let's go to the Steelers at the Raiders, where the Raiders shock Pittsburgh 24-21 in the Oakland Coliseum on a clutch Carr game-winning touchdown pass. Derek Carr gets it done, a 6-yard game-winning touchdown pass to Derek Carrier with just 21 seconds left. Roethlisberger didn't come back from a rib injury until late in the fourth quarter and almost got the job done. But the Steelers, Chris Boswell, the kicker, slips on a 40-yard field goal, and the Raiders win the game. Tito, this must have been a hell of a game to watch, and nice to see your quarterback deliver in the clutch.
Yeah, Derek Carr's been playing better as of late. It looks like he's gotten more comfortable in the offense. It looks like he knows more. It looks like his receivers and him are more on the same page. I know in a lot of the early games, there was a lot of miscommunication. They weren't running the right routes. He was placing the ball in places that they weren't going to. And so it's definitely nice to see him have this type of game. Even last week when we lost to the Chiefs, we put up a fight.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders put up a fight, and the offense has definitely gotten going. And so it's definitely good to see him, get a little bit of a rhythm, a little more consistency. That way we can end the season on a better note, and hopefully that can carry over into the next year. And it's also difficult to say how well that's going to go. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of turnover again in the wide receiver corps. But hopefully we're able to keep some of our better players like Jared Cook, who's just had a monster year this year.
Yeah.
Him and Derek Carr really seem to have a connection going, and so that's been great. So yeah, it's definitely nice to see Derek Carr have really good games as of late.
Now, I floated this idea a couple weeks ago, and I get the feeling you're not going to like this. I talked about, I was like, hey, Derek Carr's struggling. John Gruden doesn't really seem to want him. Jameis Winston's struggling. Tampa doesn't seem to want him. How about a straight-up trade, Jameis Winston for Derek Carr? Do you think Derek Carr, do you like him, and do you want him to be the long-term franchise quarterback, or do you think that the Raiders might need to look for one?
Yeah, I know. I like Derek Carr as our long-term quarterback. I think he's played really good, and I think people forget. 2 years ago we were 12-4.
Yeah.
Right, and in the playoffs, and if he doesn't break his ankle or break his foot on the last game of the season, who knows what kind of damage we could have done in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That year was not a very good year in the AFC. The Texans were bad. The Patriots weren't even that great. So who knows what might have happened if he was healthy. So I think Derek Carr still has a very bright future. I also have the sense of feeling that, that feeling that John Gruden doesn't necessarily agree. I'm not sure that Winston's the answer either.
Yep.
I think if anything, they're probably, if they're going to trade him, they'll probably be in the draft to a team that is all they need is a quarterback, and they're ready to take the next step. But I don't actually see that happening. I think Derek Carr, he still has a lot of room to improve, and I think in the last couple of years he's also had a change in offensive coordinator the last 3 years. So
yeah.
He can get some consistency in his coaches, in what offense they're going to run, in the system they're going to run. I think he's only going to get better. And like I said, his last few games he's improved a lot from the first couple of games where we couldn't even move the ball. So I think if he can get a couple more years under his belt in this system, the John Gruden system, I think he'll be good as a long-term quarterback.
Yeah, that's a great point too, is when you're constantly switching up the offensive coordinator or the system you're running and you don't have consistency at the coaching position, it's hard for any quarterback to feel comfortable and to feel like he can play his best for that team because you're constantly learning new shit. And I think it makes you think more instead of just instinctually play football.
Right, right. And the receivers that he's had, I mean, even when we had Amari Cooper, they dropped the ball a lot.
Yep.
And so, that doesn't help. And even this year, I mean, we've had an amount of receivers, Amari Cooper. We had Martavis Bryant, who, he's injured now as well. Jordy Nelson hasn't been that great either. He looks old. He looks slow. So we've just had so many different wide receivers. It's hard to get consistency and a good, consistency with your wide receivers when every week it's a different wide receiver that's going to be your number one target.
Yeah, absolutely. The good news for the Raiders is they stopped the Steelers' running game with James Conner out with an ankle. It was non-existent. 19 combined rushes for Pittsburgh for 40 yards. And Adam, you probably like this. Shout out to Raiders linebacker Tahir Whitehead, who registers 10 tackles and a pick in the game. He's been getting it done. Adam, what's your take on the Steelers here? Kind of they're trying to get in at a best spot possible in the playoffs. They got the Ravens nipping at their heels, and this is a bad loss in Oakland for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, this is a really bad loss for them because their schedule is not easy going forward. They play New England this upcoming week, that's in Pittsburgh, then they have to go to New Orleans, and then they finish the season home at Cincinnati. So they need to somehow go 2-1 in these games in the next 3 weeks, which is going to be really tough to do.
Yeah.
And then as you said, they have the Ravens right there, and they have the Colts right there, and the Titans right there. So I don't know. I think Pittsburgh is at a real there's a real high chance of missing the playoffs this season, and this loss might be the thing that they look back at and say, man, we really should have beaten the Raiders.
Yeah, the Steelers are falling right now at the wrong time. They will look to end a 3-game losing streak going into Week 15 against the Patriots. Let me get you guys' thoughts on that. At this point, Adam, who do you think wins the AFC North? Do you think the Steelers or the Ravens?
Right now, without actually knowing what the Ravens' schedule looks like, I'd have to say the Ravens.
Yeah.
Just because the Steelers' schedule looks so tough. And I'm just looking at it now. The Ravens are home against Tampa Bay, at the Chargers, and home against Cleveland. So
they can go 2 out of 3.
Not necessarily easy games either. They might end up going. Maybe it is Pittsburgh. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Tito? Who do you think comes out of the North, Baltimore or Pittsburgh?
Oh man, yeah. I'm actually gonna go with the Steelers only because for some reason when they play teams like, no offense to the Raiders, my team, when they play teams that aren't that great,
yeah,
they play down to their competition. They did it against Jacksonville.
Yeah.
They did it, against the Raiders. And next week they're gonna come ready to play. It's in Heinz Field against the Patriots. I think the Steelers do get a win in that game. And so I do think that the Steelers play better against better competition. So I do think the Steelers will win that division, but I also think the Ravens will make the playoffs as a wild card team.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. You got the Patriots coming off a really bad loss. They're going to be pissed off. You got the Steelers coming into this one on a 3-game losing streak. Really, this game is almost a must-win for Pittsburgh, and it's going to be very tough. We'll see if James Conner plays or not, but the Steelers' back's against the wall. Adam, Mike Tomlin keeps on getting himself in these situations where he gets criticized for play calling and stuff like that. Do you see any scenario if the Steelers miss the playoffs where Mike Tomlin won't be back next year?
I find it very hard to believe the Steelers have had 3 head coaches in the last 40 or 50 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So I find it very hard to believe that they would fire Tomlin over 1 year when they missed the playoffs when over the course of the last decade or so they've been one of the better teams in football. So I think that would be a huge overreaction. I don't always agree with the criticism on Mike Tomlin.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when coaches play to win the game and not to not lose the game. So, he is a guy that goes and tries to win the game. He's aggressive. I like that. I will never fault a coach for being aggressive and going, and trying to win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, the Steelers are usually not the franchise that overreacts, so that's a good point on you, that most likely he'll be back. Let's go to the Eagles at the Cowboys, where the Cowboys outlast the Eagles 29-23 in overtime in Jerry World. Amari Cooper is the star of the game, 10 catches for 217 yards and 3 touchdowns, including the game-winning touchdown in overtime. The Cowboys overcome some turnovers, but get the job done in the end. I picked the Eagles to win that division. I'm totally off it now. This game pretty much puts the stamp on that. Tito, what do you think of the Cowboys getting this win against the Eagles? A big win for that franchise.
Yeah, I gotta say I've been very surprised with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They've been playing really good these last couple of weeks. What they did to the Saints, and then when they came out here, that defense has impressive. When you think of the Cowboys, I don't really think of big name defenses, but this defense has really stepped up, and they've kept them in all the games that they've won. They haven't let the game get out of control. And then Dak Prescott has been putting the ball where it needs to be.
Yep.
And having a receiver like Amari Cooper that really spreads the field, and then you don't know what they're going to do. They're going to hand off the ball to Zeke, and he's going to rush over. He'll get over 100 yards in any game. And now with a threat like Amari Cooper, that's a deep threat. They really have a lot of options, and so they've been playing really good. I think they're going to absolutely win the NFC East.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be able to make some noise in the playoffs, because that defense is a lot better than I think people might think it is.
Yeah, I agree. And Adam, it seems to be the Amari Cooper trade. I didn't think much of it when it happened, but that seems to kind of just put everything in its right order. Cooper is the number one. That moves Cole Beasley and Michael Gallup into their right spots. And then the Cowboys have shifted their offensive mindset and are feeding Ezekiel Elliott more and more. And that seems to be the recipe for success, along with playing great defense.
Yeah, I actually have a couple numbers on that. Dak Prescott, for the 7 games before Amari Cooper, the Cowboys were 3-4. He had a 62% completion percentage. He had 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 202 passing yards a game, and an 87.4 passer rating. After Cooper, with 6 games, they're 5-1, 74% completion instead of 62. His yards per game is up to 285. 9 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and almost 106 passer rating as opposed to 87. So,
wow.
They've been, obviously, it's helped Dak Prescott out a whole lot. And actually, interestingly, I believe it's actually helped Derek Carr too. I think his QB rating has gone up from like a 90 to like a 105 since Cooper left. So it's actually worked out for both teams.
Wow.
And, I guess I didn't think it would have that big of an impact, but it definitely has. He seems to be the difference.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy. You guys, either of you think the Cowboys can make some noise in the playoffs and get at least a win and maybe challenge the Rams or the Saints?
I think they can. I definitely think they can win their first game.
Yeah.
Because with the Rams and Saints, they'll probably get the byes, and so I do think they could win that first game. I'm not sure who they would play right now.
I think now it's setting up for Cowboys Seahawks in Dallas.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a game that I think they can win. Again, the Cowboys defense led by Van Der Esch, they're just all over the field, and I think they can definitely hold down Russell Wilson. All the Seahawks have been playing better as of late. I don't think they're a complete team. Their defense has been getting better, but you can't really load the box against Zeke. And then with Coop, again, you even notice that there's more teams are starting to double team him.
Yep.
And that does open up the game for other players like Cole Beasley to have a few more catches, and Blake Jarwin as well. So I think the Cowboys will make some noise and will put up a good fight against, after that first game against the Rams or the Saints.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've already shown that they've proven that they can beat the Saints. Now, can they do it on the road? That's a different story. Do you agree with that, Adam? You think Dallas will be dangerous come January?
Yes, and I think the reason is because not only is their like Tito mentioned before, not only is their offense going to be good, but their defense is really what's been keeping them in these games. From the first 3 quarters of that game against the Eagles, Dak Prescott had 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a fumble, and his QBR was the ESPN one was 31.
Wow.
And then in the fourth quarter in overtime, he had 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. His QBR was 91. So that defense is really what kept him in the game up until that point when they were able to make their comeback and ultimately win the game. So it's going to take, I think, a full game effort from Dak to win a game in the playoffs. I think they can. As long as they're hosting a game in Dallas, I think there's a good chance they'll win maybe their first round game. But I find it hard to believe they're going to go into New Orleans or into LA and beat either of those teams without a near perfect game.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest concern in Dallas is hoping that the clapper, Jerry Jones, doesn't mess it up. And on top of that, you got those 2 young linebackers, poor man Urlacher and Briggs there with Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith. Those guys are nasty. Let's go to Sunday Night Football, where the Rams, the Bears defense stifles the Rams in Soldier Field, 15-6, and LA's 3-game winning streak. Neither quarterback excelled in a cold night in Chicago. Trubisky, in his first game back since injuring his throwing shoulder, combines for 133 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks, consistently overthrowing his receivers downfield. That was definitely a problem throughout this game. Luckily for him, the defense and running game stepped up, and the Bears ran for 194 yards on 35 attempts. And they forced Jared Goff. They held him to 180 yards and forced him into a career-high 4 interceptions. He was also sacked 3 times, including once for a safety. And the Bears were also able to hold LA's star running back Todd Gurley to just 58 combined yards, and the Rams as a team to only 52 rushing yards. I couldn't be happier with this game. It was nice to see the defense show up, and the offense, Trubisky struggled, but man, this defense is fun to watch. Adam, what did you think of this game? Pretty shocking the way the Bears controlled the Rams offense.
Yeah, they've been, mostly unstoppable, this season. If you think was it 3 or 4 weeks ago, they played the Chiefs on Monday Night Football, and they both scored in the 50s, and now a few weeks later, the Rams can only score 6. And, that's a credit to the Bears defense. This season alone, the Bears defense has come up with 40 sacks, 42 tackles for losses. They've had 73 passes defensed, 18 forced fumbles. One of those led to a touchdown, and 25 interceptions. And 5 of those were, run back for a touchdown. So it's tough for any team to be playing against this Bears defense right now. And granted, it's tough to play against the Rams front line too, with Ndamukong Suh and either your, depending on how you want to look at it, either your best defensive player in the league or second defensive player in the league, whether you want to go with Aaron Donald or if you want to go with Khalil Mack, and you also have Brockers on that defensive line as well. So all the way around, it's not a good day for quarterbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I was happiest about in this game was that Aaron Donald was pretty much non-existent. I think he had a tackle, and maybe he had like a tackle, maybe assisted tackle, maybe 1 tackle for loss, but we really held him in check and double-teamed him throughout. And I was just happy the way it worked out. Now, Adam, do you think this was more so about playing outdoors in Chicago in the cold? Do you think that if the Bears played in LA, they could still hold the defense down, or do you think it'd be a much closer battle that way?
I think it probably a lot of it to do with the weather. The Bears defense is great, don't get me wrong, but I think in LA and a home crowd, decent weather, I think the game probably would have gone differently. But you never know. But my opinion would be that the Rams would probably win that game if it was if it was in fair weather.
Yeah, I mean,
even on a neutral field.
Yeah, and I asked that question because it's lining up that we would get the 3 seed, and if we win a playoff game, we'd have to go to LA. So, we might be looking at a rematch here in January, this time in LA. Tito, what did you think of this game? The Bears defense looking really impressive, and you have to be surprised with how little the Rams offense got going.
Yeah, the Bears defense, I think all year long has been really impressive. They've scored touchdowns on many occasions, and even this game they had a safety, so they were able to score some points. I do think, this game, I think the weather did have a factor, but I think even if they went to LA, for example, I don't think the Rams would put up the big numbers that they usually put. I still think it'd be a game in the low 20s where the Bears would have a chance if Trubisky is able to hit his receivers, and if Tariq Cohen goes off, if Jordan Howard goes off for another 100 yards or so. I think they can definitely keep up with a team like the Rams if the defense stays on this level of playing. But yeah, it's very impressive to see what a good Bears defense can do to a team like the Rams who have just been playing great on offense this year.
Yeah, and I just gotta say a selfish fact, but I'm just so happy to see these two offenses in back-to-back weeks. The Saints held to 10 and the Rams held to 6. Nothing makes me happier than seeing some defense back in the league after that 54-51 game.
Right, yeah, it's not something that you would expect.
Yeah.
But it is good to see, and it is something like like the Bears, the Cowboys, the Ravens. It has to put some confidence in your team that say, okay, our defenses are good enough to on a single game be able to hold the Rams defense or these high-powered offenses to low points, right?
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen if you play, say, maybe did 4 out of 7, or have a 7-game series, and it probably won't happen all 7 games. Probably 1 or 2 games where you're able to hold them down. But that's what's great about the playoffs. It's just one game, and on a one game, anything can happen. And I think it's got to be good for all these good defenses, great defenses, to be able to know, hey, we're good enough to be able to stop these high-powered offenses.
Yeah, and we'll see if that translates into the playoffs. The Bears are seeking their first playoff appearance since 2010, and right now have won 6 out of the last 7 games. Chicago will look to start a winning streak in Week 15 against the Packers, and as a Bears fan, I gotta say, Trubisky's got to look better. I know it was his first game back from shoulder injury, but can't be sailing these balls. Too many interceptions, too many costly turnovers that your defense isn't always going to be able to pick you up. So hopefully Trubisky does better going forward. I was happy to see the running game get established in that game, and that's a huge part to any defense is running the ball, keeping that defense rested, and keeping the opposing quarterback off the field. Let's go to Monday night where the Vikings the Seahawks take down the Vikings in CenturyLink 21-7. Shocking game here. Speaking of defense, Seattle's defense is kind of under the radar. Tito, what do you think of the Seahawks? They improved to 8-5, and another defense that is coming along pretty good despite the Legion of Boom being gone.
Yeah, that's another team that's definitely caught me off guard that I'm kind of surprised about because I thought they had lost a lot of – they did lose a lot of players on that defensive side. And a good amount of players also on the offensive side. But they're keeping going. I think it really shows how good of a quarterback Russell Wilson is and how good of a coach Pete Carroll is to have this team playing the way it is right now. I thought the Vikings have a good team.
They do.
But
yeah.
they held Dalvin Cook in check, Adam Thielen. They held him in check. So it's surprising to see how good the Seahawks have been playing as of late.
Yeah, and the Vikings were my preseason Super Bowl pick. With all that talent and then adding Kirk Cousins, a healthy Dalvin Cook. He hasn't been as healthy as he could be this year, but he's been healthy of recently. And the Vikings, can't get anything going offensively in this game. And then after the game, they fire offensive coordinator John DeFilippo. Adam, were you surprised by this move? And what do you think about the Vikings? Do you think they can get it together, or do you think this is a lost season for them?
This is probably lost. I don't think they're gonna. I don't. Although they're clinging on to that last playoff spot, I don't see them holding on to it. The offense has not been playing well. Obviously, they just fired their offensive coordinator. Defense has been disappointing this year, although they're not terrible. They just haven't been up to the standard of last year. And I guess I wouldn't call it a lost season, but I don't see them going anywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Even if they make the playoffs.
Yeah. Looking back at last year, in 2017, the Vikings had the second most rushing attempts, despite an injured Dalvin Cook. In the NFL, second most rushing attempts, and they went all the way to the NFC Championship game. So far in 2018, the Vikings have the second least amount of rushing attempts, and they might miss the playoffs. Do you think there's any correlation there, Tito? And do you think that's why the offensive coordinator was fired?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a correlation there. Especially and they have good running backs, Latavius Murray, Dalvin Cook. I'm surprised that they didn't want to feed him more.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because maybe they trusted too much in Kirk Cousins and what Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen could do. But it is surprising. That's a great stat. It is surprising that they decided to run the ball a lot less this year, because those are great running backs that they could have gotten a lot out of, and they just didn't.
Yeah. And Adam, nowadays more than ever, you're hearing that the time to go for a Super Bowl is when you got a quarterback on his rookie deal. The highest paid quarterbacks annually, the top 6, are Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Matthew Stafford, and Derek Carr. And as of right now, only one of those is in the playoff contention, which is Kirk Cousins, and he might miss the playoffs as well. Do you think there's something to that?
Yeah, you want to build up a good team around the quarterback. So if you can get a quarterback in that first few years of their, before they get to their second contract, you have the ability, just like the Rams have done, to bring in all these extra, defensive players, and it gives you a much better chance at stacking your roster to achieve that. Great team, and it's worked with the Patriots because Tom Brady's been willing to pay for less, so they've still been able to do that.
Exactly. Do you think it's possible to win with a quarterback on a max contract? You see, people are praising Tom Brady for taking those pay cuts, and you got Aaron Rodgers over there, making the highest amount annually per year, and they're missing the playoffs. Do you think it's possible to win with with your quarterback on a max contract?
It's definitely possible. It makes it a little more difficult, but I don't like ever people complaining about players taking as much money as they can.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't fault the players for taking the money that they're worth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does make it a little more difficult for the team to build, a solid, well-rounded team around that single player.
Yeah, that's very true. And right now in Chicago, we got all our money locked up in our linebacker Khalil Mack. So we'll see how that affects us going forward. But yeah, it's tough to spread all that money around when your quarterback's getting $30+ million a year. Let's go to the Week 15 predictions. Let's start off with Thursday night, tomorrow night. The 10-3 Chargers at the 11-2 Chiefs in Arrowhead. primetime football. Adam, you've had some great stats on the Thursday night games. Let me get your opinion here first. Chargers or Chiefs tomorrow night?
I'm going with the Chiefs, and I'm not going to say a blowout, but I think it'll be by maybe more than a touchdown.
Okay. I hope it's a good game. I'm going to go Chiefs, but I'm going to say Chiefs by 3 or 4, hopefully. And hopefully it's a good game. What do you say, Tito?
I'm actually going to go with the Chargers in this one. I think the Chargers will win on a late field goal.
Okay.
Right at the end. I think the Chargers will come back there in the fourth quarter and make this a very interesting game and actually pull out the win at the end.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the AFC West tighten up and see what happens.
You can make the argument that the Chargers are always playing away games because they have no home field.
Yep. Let's we got some Saturday afternoon and Saturday night football. Let's look at the Saturday night game. The 5-7-1 Browns at the 6-7 Broncos. Tito, where are you leaning on this game? This is an interesting matchup.
This is an interesting matchup. I'm actually going to go with the Browns in this game. Denver has been very inconsistent, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, as you saw with the last game against the 49ers, they just showed up late. And so I think the Browns have a little more. They've been rejuvenated. They've got into a better rhythm there, and so I think the Browns will get that win.
Yeah. What do you? And an interesting point here is the Broncos, after losing Emmanuel Sanders for the year, going into this game, they didn't look good offensively, and that could be a huge loss for them. What do you say, Adam, in this game?
I actually think I'm going to agree. I think that the Browns are actually playing some pretty good football right now, and I think they might go into Denver and get the win.
Wow, and who would have thought the Browns were going to get 6 wins coming off an 0-16 season? I'm going to go... It's a tough one for me. I think I'm going to go Browns as well, but that Broncos defense is pretty good. They got Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, but they've also got some injuries. They're pretty banged up in Denver. I'm going to go Browns on the road here, which would be a nice win for a rookie quarterback in Mile High. Let's go to Sunday, the 8-5 Cowboys at the 7-6 Colts. What say you, Adam?
I'm going to say that the Cowboys continue on their winning ways and get the win in Indy, although I'm not confident in saying that.
Yeah. If they keep on feeding Zeke, they'll have a better opportunity. What do you say, Tito?
Yeah, I'm going to agree as well. I think the Cowboys win this week against the Colts. I think Andrew Luck's going to have a tougher time against the Cowboys defense than they did this past week. I know the Texans have a good defense as well, but I do think that defense is going to be a little tighter, and I do think Amari Cooper is going to have another great week, and so I'm going to go Cowboys in this game.
All right. I'm going to go Colts just as a contrarian. I like their offensive line as one of the best in the leagues, if not the best. And they're going to need it going against that Cowboys D-line. And hopefully they protect Luck. And if they do, they give them enough time, I think the Colts can figure out a way to win that. And they need all the wins they can get here late in the year. Let's go to the 7-6 Dolphins at the 6-1 Vikings. I'm going to pick the Vikings to win this one. I say they bounce back and get a win. The Dolphins, to me, are not a legit playoff team, so they're a pretender. So go Vikings. What do you think, Tito?
Yeah, I'm going to go Vikings as well. I think they are the better team. They overall, Miami has had a few lucky breaks, so I'm going to go Vikings in this one. All
right, you agree, Adam?
I'm actually also going to go Vikings. I think they're going to respond to the offensive coordinator being fired. They're going to come out, especially at home, with a little bit extra oomph, and they'll get the job done.
Nice, yeah. Let's go to 7-6 Titans at the 5-8 Giants. I'm going the Giants, winners of 4 out of the last 5. What do you think, Adam?
I'm gonna go with the Titans here.
All right.
The Giants have been playing pretty well, but the Tennessee has a really good defense.
Yeah.
And I think they'll slow down the Giants' offense, and they'll be able to kind of eke out a win in New York.
Do you agree, Tito?
Yeah, I do agree. The Titans defense is an underrated defense in my opinion. They've been playing pretty good. I think they'll slow down Saquon Barkley a bit, and then I think that offense is also a bit underrated. I think Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis will make some noise again. I think the Titans win this one.
All right, I'm gonna go Giants. I'm gonna go with Odell Beckham Jr. should be back for this game. Saquon is a handful, we all know. And their defense, the Giants' defense, has been playing better of late, especially linebacker Alec Ogletree with the interceptions. And I'm just not sold on what Mariota's been doing all year long. I feel like he's been battling injury all year. If they get a big performance out of Derrick Henry again, they're going to win, but I just don't see it happening 2 weeks in a row, so we'll see. Let's go 5-8 Bucks at the 7-6 Ravens. I'm picking Ravens here to bounce back in a nice way with that defense and Lamar Jackson. Do you agree, Tito?
Yep, I'm taking the Ravens as well. I just don't trust Jameis Winston to do what needs to be done to get a W against the Ravens defense.
Yeah, I can see that. You agree, Adam?
One of these teams has something to play for, the other one does not.
Yep.
Ravens.
Yep. Good one. Let's go 9-4 Patriots at the 7-5-1 Steelers. A must-win, pretty much, in my opinion, for the Steelers, with the Ravens hot on their tail and coming off a bad loss. Where are you going with this one, Adam?
New England very rarely loses back-to-back games. I got to go with New England, even though Pittsburgh has all the encouragement they need to win this game. I don't know. Bill Belichick is too good.
Yeah. Do you agree, Tito?
I'm actually going to disagree, and only because this game is going to be played in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the difference. I think this is a toss-up, and I think it'll be a close game. But I think I'm going to go with the Steelers in this one.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and say the Steelers are thanking God that the catch rule is figured out. They remember they got bit by that last year.
Yeah.
And that being said, I'm still going Patriots. I just feel like the Steelers have like a mental block about beating New England, and it'll probably be a hell of a game, come right down to the wire, but clutch Tom Brady delivers, and the Patriots will find a way. Let's go to Sunday night, the 6-7 Eagles at the 11-2 Rams. The Eagles are pretty much buried, and I believe they have shut down Carson Wentz already for the rest of the year. So they're going to be starting Nick Foles in this game. So I'm going Rams in probably a pretty big margin. Do you agree, Tito?
Yeah, I'm going to go Rams as well. I think the Eagles have lost all their confidence, and I don't think they know what kind of team they are. I think the Rams will win this one pretty big.
Yeah, and the Eagles secondary beat up, and the Rams pissed off about only scoring 6 this last week. I think they'll be firing on all cylinders. Do you agree, Adam?
Definitely, yeah. I got Rams all the way.
Yep. And then Monday night, 11-2 Saints at the 6-7 Panthers. Adam, any chance Carolina gets the upset?
I want to say no, but these division games are always tough. I think it'll be probably closer than it should be.
Yep.
But I'm still going to go with the Saints.
Okay. Do you agree, Tito?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Saints, and I actually think this will be a close game. I think Cam Newton, he's heard all the noise about him, and like you said, the division games are always tough. You play these people, these teams twice a year. You hate them, so I think Carolina will wake up, but I think in the end the Saints will prevail.
Yep, and I agree. I'm taking the Saints as well. I like the Panthers. I'd love to pick them, but they're just not getting it done this year. So go Saints. They're the better team. Thanks for coming on, guys. You guys killed it. Another successful week. Thank you to the listeners for checking it out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. And have a great weekend. Have a good week. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming on. You guys did great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Yep, and you guys are welcome back anytime. And we'll keep pumping out the episodes and hopefully have some guests coming up, some interviews. So thanks for tuning in, and have a good one. Peace out.